Howdy, I'm Michael Dozier, and I chose to do my tribute speech on Kurt Cobain, the lead singer of Nirvana, and this is my audience. In the midst of his prime, one of the most talented individuals who ever lived took his life far before its time. Kurt Cobain was a very troubled rock legend from the famous band Nirvana. He had a very bright career ahead of him, but it just goes to show that no matter what, some of us have skeletons in our closets, and that we are hiding more than what we show on the outside. I grew up listening to Nirvana most of my teenage years, and up until now I still listen to them occasionally. But it still hurts knowing how the pain and suffering this man went through affected him and ultimately caused him to end his life. I'm going to be presenting the audience with more background on his childhood, to the time with his band, and also his ultimate demise. Kurt Cobain's childhood consisted of his parents fighting on a more regular basis than you'd like to know. Ultimately, they of course ended in a divorce, and he ended up moving in with his father, and only got to see his mother and sister on the weekend. His father originally promised not to remarry to help Kurt get through the rough time as a childhood, but that ultimately failed. His father eventually remarried, and Cobain resented his new stepmother because he felt like his dad would always choose her side over his, and he would never be the favorite anymore. Eventually, this led him to take up drugs and become an addict. One of his uncles actually saw the pain he was going through and introduced him to a used guitar that led him to form the band Nirvana. He was actually a very creative individual, as can be seen or heard in most of their songs. Despite what the name means now in history, Nirvana actually had a very rough start before its rise to fame. They went through very, very, very many small gigs before they finally got their break. Cobain ended up meeting Courtney Love, who was eventually Courtney Love, who was eventually his wife. But before that, she was one of their one of their traveling bandmates who was able to hook them up with many larger gigs. With songs like "Smells Like Teen Spirit," you can listen to Cobain's creativity. He was actually considered one of the greatest songwriters of his generation. But despite the amount of success that they experienced, his addiction to love and drugs led to his ultimate demise. His eventual marriage with Courtney Love was very, very bad. They would fight almost as much as his own parents did, but they never went through the divorce. Cobain was a very loving person. He never saw it as a possible ending. They would fight quite often, and at times she would call authorities on him over domestic violence acts. Eventually, one time he locked himself up in a bathroom with a bottle of medication and a couple of his guns. Fearing for his life, Courtney Love called the authorities to come and bust him out, but nothing happened. He didn't do anything this time. What ultimately happened was, one day in the privacy of his own guest house, he took his life by placing a shotgun in his mouth. um, one of the greatest musicians of all time, struggled through in his entire life, from the childhood leading to the drugs, which not even the love of his life could fix. He was a very inspirational person and always tried to encourage self-esteem. He cared about the importance of everybody, and one of his most famous quotes of all time is, "I'd rather be hated for who I am than loved for who I am not." I encourage the audience to go do a little more research on him, listen to some of his music, and hopefully you'll learn to appreciate this man as I have. Thank you. They're still here?